Hi, I'm Russell Ruffin, and today we're in Boston, Massachusetts, and our tip this time involves the diminishing resources of news organizations. Every day, because of economic cutbacks, you're seeing news organizations get smaller and smaller, and that's a fact that can actually benefit you, and we're going to show you how. Here at our Boston area class, we discussed how having fewer and fewer reporters out on the streets can actually work to your advantage. If you've ever had a reporter show up to your office to do an interview and that reporter is also the photographer, you have it made in the shade. You're going to have pretty good coverage if you give the reporter pretty good sound bites. But just to ensure that you get good coverage, it's always a good idea to give that reporter a written news release. Now, I know what you're going to say. You don't always have time to sit down and write up a news release. Sometimes these things happen at the last minute. Well, one thing you can do is take a couple of good notes ahead of time and give it to the reporter. In other words, just put 2 or 3 facts, pertinent facts about the story, and hand it over to the reporter. The reason you want to do that is because you cannot depend on anyone to sit through a 10 or 15-minute interview and write everything word for word. For one thing, as a reporter, I can't write as fast as you talk. And even though I'm going to have a video of everything that you say, when I get back at the station, I'm not going to have time to sit there and sit through the interview a second time and take a second batch of notes. And I may have a misunderstanding of one thing that you said. In other words, you might have explained it to me the way you would understand it or the way someone else in your office would understand it, but you may not have said it in a way that I would understand it. So that's why it's always important. Take a sheet of paper. You don't have to have it voluminous. Just have 2 or 3 facts, important facts, because believe it or not, I've had many times people tell me they'll sit down with a reporter, they think the reporter has the story, but when it gets on the air or gets in print, it's nothing like they discussed. And the reason that happens is not because the reporter is being deceptive or dishonest or trying to do a number on you. It's actually because that reporter had a different conception of what the story was. They had a different understanding of what the story was. That's why it's important for you to write out a few of the pertinent facts and hand it over to the reporter. So bear in mind, when a reporter comes out and it's a one-person crew, that one-person crew is probably covering 3 or 4 stories that day. They don't have time to go in depth. They're not the I team. They're not an investigative reporter team. They're not trying to do a number on you. They're just trying to get this news as best they can. So you can help them as best you can. Give them a good sound bite, and if you can, give them a summary of what you're talking about. So when they get back to the station, they can go by not their notes, they can go by your notes. That way they can be sure that they have the facts